Let's check in with Linda Mnisi. Linda?
Yeah, Iman, you'd recall that last year, this year, in fact, was declared the year of Jubilee, and in fact, it was declared last year. And my guest right now was in Rome for the Jubilee of teenagers when the Pope passed away. Her name is Obi Ideh from Nigeria. Obi, thank you so much for your time. I want you to talk to me about being here for the year of Jubilee, and suddenly the Pope passes away.
It's like a father asked you to come home, and you come home and you have dinner, and the following day he's gone. It was a really big deal. The Jubilee is called every 25 years, and so the last Jubilee was Pope John Paul II, and I wasn't in Rome, but this year I came with my family and we're very excited to be answering the call of the Holy Father. And I had just said goodbye to my older son. He was going back to Nigeria because he came with a university group. And a taxi driver told me that the Holy Father had passed. It was really like a sudden loss of a parent on a Thanksgiving weekend. It was a really big deal emotionally.
And I suppose then you were still here during the Easter service and would have seen him in his last days. What was that moment like for you?
Well, I actually chose to attend a service with the Nigerian community that Sunday, and not being able to see him for Easter Sunday Angelus meeting because he didn't celebrate the Easter Sunday Mass, but he did come out on at the balcony and gave the Angelus greeting. But we just assumed that he was going to be here this Sunday. He was going to be the one to celebrate tomorrow's Mass, and he would canonize, a teenager. And I have teenagers, and we're looking forward to it. And all of a sudden, he's gone.
Talk to us about what the Pope means to the Nigerian community. In Nigeria, who is Pope Francis? What does he mean to the Nigerian Catholics?
The Holy Father is always like the center of our identity, how we identify ourselves in the world. And Pope Francis, he, having declared several extraordinary jubilees and synods, he took us on a journey into the periphery to rethink and to re-examine things about our faith that we had almost in just purely, I guess, theoretical, where John Paul II and Benedict XVI, this is what the church believed. And Pope Francis asked us to say, well, how does this person feel? And so he helped us to open some windows in the church.
And experiencing today?
Today was very emotional. I was fortunate to get here early enough to be in the piazza and to follow the prayers, to see his coffin, a simple coffin, just like John Paul II, to say the prayers and to follow the Mass just the way I would back in Nigeria. Only, yes, there are like the people participating is like times 1,000, but it's still the same prayers, and the same commendation and the request that God, be merciful to a servant who has, tried to serve him faithfully. It was very emotional.
Anju, thank you so much for your time. I know you were leaving, and I asked my colleague to grab you back. In fact, Iman, she's standing right here with a Nigerian flag, so representing Nigeria and giving us her experience of what today was light, but also taking us back to the moment when the Pope passed away certainly is something that we'll continue to reflect on. And I'll let you go. Thank you very much. But also, Iman, you'd recall that Africa in general accounts for about 20% of the global Catholic community, and essentially it keeps growing, and there are predictions that it will keep growing, and many people are drawn to it, particularly because of the rituals, but also because of the symbolism that keeps growing, keep growing rather, the Catholic community in Africa. So of course, those voices will come out from a place like Rome, particularly at this time. So we've been seeing quite a number of people and continue to speak to them. Iman?
About how many Africans are Catholic. I think the number we heard this morning was 272 million Africans and 3.8 million South African Roman Catholics. So again, as we mentioned earlier, the membership of the Catholic Church fading in certain countries, South America and America, but on the African continent and in places like Asia, that membership couldn't be stronger than today. So stories like the one that you just shared with us from Obi certainly exemplify that passion, that love on the African continent for the Roman Catholic Church. What are you up to next, Linda?
Well, we'll continue, Iman, to speak to people really about their experiences, especially around this time, and what they understood Pope Francis to be. And it seems there is that common thread, right, amongst everybody. There was an interesting reflection from Obi, who said the Pope took the church on a journey to the periphery, really, and it reminded me of one of the ceremonies that was held in Johannesburg, where a lot of that was reflected on the fact that he took the church and placed it at the center of the periphery, really speaking to those who are on the margins of society. So those reflections continue to come up, Iman.
Just before I let you go, again, we spoke about a massive organizational effort that renders an event of this scale and magnitude so flawless, talks to the machine of the Vatican and the Roman Catholic Church itself, being able to spring into action when the time is needed. I saw some emergency service workers behind you walking by. We've reflected in days past about the Swiss Guard and the Vatican Gendarmerie. This is the Vatican Police. All of these agencies that are there to make sure that everything works like clockwork. What has been your observation, especially from your location, of how well run this all has been?
Well, Iman, I had lost you there, but I got the last bit of your question. But like I said earlier on, you look at the streets around this area, and how from yesterday, in fact, when we landed here, we were told there are going to be a number of streets that will be closed. There will be dignitaries that will be attending this mass. So the plans are already underway, and people almost know where to go and where not to go. And even this morning, as we drove to this particular area, there was almost a sense of people working together, whether or not you're part of planning this mass. People just really were working together. The shops around here remained closed until a particular time, and which of course meant that it's taking money away from them, but it is an important day, and everybody seemed to understand that. But also, as you know, this is a very big and large space, really. So making sure that the logistics and how people move is quite important. I mean, I'll ask my colleague. I don't know if you can see, but about a kilometer or two from where we're standing, there is a robot, and on the sides there were already a number of people that were standing just after 6 o'clock, Iman, waiting to be let in. And I tell you, the manner in which all of it was handled, there was no stampede, there was no screaming. It's almost as if everybody understood what their role is in this whole ceremony. And I was in fact told earlier this week that there are some lessons that even the South African government draws from the church in terms of planning logistics. If you recall, the funeral service of former President Nelson Mandela and his body lying in state, scores of people went to the Union buildings to view his body. So it is something of that magnitude where you see people coming from different walks of life coming to one space, and it being well coordinated, meticulously so, where there's literally, we haven't even heard of an incident take place here. The service is done, and I'll ask my colleague Max Silotolo to just come back to the St. Peter's Square. Immediately after the service was done, people were asked to move away from the St. Peter's Square steps, from the steps in fact, to move away, to exit and try to make way for those who want to leave. And that was done in a matter of minutes. There's still some people, others as you can see are coming back, but an hour ago, I can tell you, this space was clear. It was clear. Security were giving instructions to everybody to start moving out of the area. So again, there are people that are coming from different countries, and obviously this, besides it being, part of the church or being the church, there is a sense of it being a tourist attraction site. It's majestic, it is beautiful. So obviously, after a ceremony, a historic ceremony like the funeral mass of Pope Francis, people would want to take pictures for the sake of memory, really. So you see a lot of them still hanging around. But of course, even how members of the media were stationed, there were clear instructions given ahead of time of where everybody should be and how well coordinated that was. Once you enter in the morning, you couldn't go out. And that's one of the challenges that we face, because there's some other things that we still needed to do, but we were told, look, you can't go out until the service is done. So this is a service that was handled meticulously, planned well and executed well, but also looking back over the past couple of days, we were told by the Vatican that since Wednesday until I think about yesterday, there were over 125,000 people who had gone to the Basilica to view the Pope's body. There were visuals coming out of the Basilica of people, scores of people still coming in. And how that was handled really is, a sight to really marvel. But essentially it has been a successful event, and one that did not last long, unlike the kind of, services that we would have back at home. This was really handled within a matter of hours.